Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
And that sound means it's time for one of our special segments. It's called our Conservative Future segment, where we highlight a young conservative here in Arkansas. And I just want to welcome to the program, introduce you to Mr. Trey Rosenbaum joins us. Trey, welcome to the Paul Harrell program.
Hey, Paul. Good to be with you, man.
Yes, sir. So first off, tell everybody how old you are.
I am 28, just turned 28.
All right, 28 years old. Okay, so tell us, you're first of all, tell us what you do, too, as well, please.
Okay, I am actually, as of a few weeks ago, unemployed, but hoping to be starting a new job soon. So in the works interview process, getting that all worked out.
That's fantastic.
I have been in the past worked in politics and worked in the auto parts world.
Okay, in the auto parts world. All right, so you identify, though, and I say this really hilariously because of the way it's being used, but you self-identify as a conservative. Is that right, Trey?
Most definitely. Definitely.
So how did that happen? How you're 28 years old, and a lot of times you don't find young conservatives. The younger you are, you tend to be more liberal. So tell us about how you arrived where you are today.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I had bad influences in my house in the form of my parents. They were both their first president to vote for was the great Ronald Reagan, and they kind of raised me in a household where those ideals and those political beliefs were taught. And I was blessed to be kind of a combination of go to a private Christian school and homeschool. And then on top of that, I also got to go to a public community college while I was in high school. And so that always kind of shaped my views. And again, it started at home. And my dad decided to run for state representative when I was 12. And I'd been interested in politics up until then. I thought they were kind of cool, mainly because my dad thought they were cool. But when he got in, I really just went full bore in. And there's something really important to know. This was 2002. So Arkansas in 2002, which I'm sure many of your listeners remember, being a conservative or a Republican in Arkansas was not a popular thing. There were only a handful of conservative legislators. And my dad, even though his district was about 50-50 Republican, it really leaned more Democrat. And He was young. He was in his early 30s, father of four, and he just decided to kind of take a leap. And, hey, I've been a small business owner. I've worked in the public and the private sector, and it's time to take my experience to the house in Little Rock. And that really kind of inspired me. I got involved in his campaign, and kind of one thing led to another. Got involved in more campaigns after that in high school, and then when I got to college, I got involved in college Republicans, and that just kind of fueled the fire even more.
I heard that a lot.
Ended up. Oh yeah, college Republicans is great, and it kind of gave me a group of people outside of my my Bible study group. It kind of gave me a group of people that, while I wanted to see different cultures and different ideas, it gave me a group of, for lack of a better term, safe people to really talk about stuff with, bounce ideas off of, and kind of grow with as a conservative. And it kind of all that culminated when I got a job working for now Senator Tom Cotton, who you're hard-pressed to find somebody in the Senate that is more conservative.
Yes.
And
hey, have you been following?
Awesome.
You've been following the RAISE Act and him up there with Donald Trump and talking about how we got to curb our immigration system, make it more merit based. Isn't that fantastic?
I really agree with it. I think it's a great move on his part. Actually, just before the show was reading up on it, I've been on the road most of today, but I think I'm not surprised to see something like that come from Tom, because when we sent Tom to D.C., we truly sent one of the smartest, brightest Arkansans there. And he really researches subjects. He surrounds himself with people that are smarter than he is, and he bounces ideas off folks. And again, getting to work for him, getting to see that kind of stuff was just awesome. And his immigration, it's funny because immigration wasn't a big deal when I worked for Tom, but it has become as the years have kind of drug on. And I love the RAISE Act because I look at it and I go, this is a great balance between making sure that we help the people that want to come here and better themselves, because that's very, very important, but vice versa, that we respect our laws and that we, in some ways, also protect American jobs. And
Absolutely.
I think it's a great compromise.
We're talking with Mr. Trey Rosenbaum. He is a young conservative, 28 years old. Hey, what part of Arkansas? You say you're on the road, so what part of Arkansas are you in? Are you in the state today?
I actually am in the liberal bastion of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, no.
So coming out here to visit some friends and all that kind of stuff. But I am from West Little Rock. Okay,
West Little Rock. Okay. All right, so Trey, tell us, this is kind of a general question, but when I say, conservatism, or you are a conservative, or I kind of have to qualify that these days with the other phrase, limited government conservatism. What does that mean to you in a nutshell?
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. We can't do the program without you. If you want to help us build it, you can give us a phone call or a text message. The number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Yesterday on the program, we talked a lot about special elections, and I will say, just real quick, I'm going to bring you up to speed because today's Thursday. We did leave one special election out. We talked about the special election in North Little Rock, how it passed, because that's what tax increases. If you want a tax increase passed, we highlighted specifically, like yesterday, that the way to do it is to do it during a special election, because you're going to have less voter turnout. You're going to have people that want to see the government expand. They are the ones that are going to show up to vote, and then the ones that don't, or don't know about the election, or are at work, they're not going to show up. It's a perfect way to get what you want passed. It's, to me, a fraud. We talked all about this. We talked about North Little Rock. We talked about Highland. We left out the folks in Franklin County. So Franklin County, they decided that they needed a new jail. And so this headline from David Hughes, 2 tax increases passed in Franklin County. Voters in Franklin County on Tuesday approved 2 taxes that officials proposed to pay for building and operating a 92-bed jail. 39 of 39 precincts reporting in Franklin County. Looks like we have 1,346 people voting for and 658 voting against. The final unofficial vote total in the other tax, which was a 0.125% sales tax. The first one was a 0.375% sales tax. For 1,318 against 689. Now, we can talk about, and I'm sure many people in Franklin County who are listening to this program, I'm sure, there's always a need to do something. But why a special election? Well, I'll tell you why. You have it during a special election so it will pass. So that the people that want the tax increase, the people that are proposing the tax increase, will get what they want, not necessarily an accurate picture of what the voters, the majority, or the best, or the most turnout would say. I'll give you an example here, because you can find over at 5 News Online, here's their write-up on this. Again, 2 days ago, August the 8th, voters approved new jail taxes in Franklin County. people in Franklin went to the polls Tuesday for a special election being held on 2 new taxes to build a new county jail. Nearly 21% of registered voters in the county cast a ballot. Okay, so keep that in mind. What did they have? They had 21% voter turnout. Almost 66% said yes to the first tax. Another 67% agreed to the second tax, with 21% voter turnout. Now, if I go over to the Franklin County Clerk's Facebook page, which is not very active, but they have a post from Arkansas Secretary of State website, Mark Martin's website. It's an old post all the way back to 2012. Do you know what the election turnout in Franklin County in a general election was in 2012, according to their own Facebook page was? Quote, election turnout was great. 71% of Franklin County registered voters came and voted to see the election results. Folks, you can click on the thing. But do you understand how ridiculous that is? 21% voter turnout versus 71% voter turnout. And those numbers are not far off from the numbers that we talked about the other day over at UCA. Those numbers aren't from 1981 to 2016. Low turnout and high pass rates, local sales tax elections. So, I mean, you know, it's just incredible. When you look at this, the numbers are not that far off. So when you have a voter turnout of 19%, you have a 77% chance of passing your tax. So the average voter turnout is 19% in special elections. And according to 5 News Online, Franklin County, they had 21%. And they actually, it says nearly 21%. So it's 20% and some change. That's incredible that special election goes, I mean, it's right in line with what we know. Normally, if you're going to have a special election, average from 1981 to 2016 statewide, you get 19%. And when you get 19%, you get a 77% pass rate of your tax increase. I just wanted to reiterate, it's not just, I mean, I don't want people to think we were leaving Franklin County out on purpose, because we were not, but why have a special election? Why do it? Because you want to get your tax passed. You don't really want an accurate picture of the most people that you can get that have to live under these rules. You don't really want that accurate picture. If you did, you'd have it during a general election or a primary. Okay, moving on now. We got a great show for you today. We got Mr. Jerry Cox back with us for the second week in a row. Jerry will be on at the bottom of this hour to talk about some of the fallout. I'm going to give him, you know, I just have a feeling with some of the scores that more establishment Republican politicians got on the Family Council scorecard, which is a social issues scorecard, and they're not happy about it. Specifically, Jim Hendren was not happy about it. He's calling on Twitter last week. Senator Jim Hendren called on the contributors to Family Council to have to, to be exposed, that the Family Council should tell everybody who their donors are. So we're going to have Jerry on because I'm just interested to know, you know, if there really has been. Is it just a Twitter thing? Is that all it is? Is it just a Twitter thing? Is it just people on Twitter complaining? Or has anything else happened? And I want to give him the opportunity to talk about that. Again, the Family Council, a terrific, traditional American values, social, conservative, organization. A lot of people love the Family Council. I love the Family Council. People donate to the Family Council because they agree with their mission. They've been doing this for 30 years, and now all of a sudden, the veil gets kind of. I think the veil is getting pulled back on these phony Republicans. That's what I think. When everybody were Democrats, no one had, that many complaints because the Democrats were not really, or over time, increasingly, they were more allergic to, social issues that people agreed with, like being pro-life or pro-family. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. Give me a phone call, but let's move on. At the top of the next hour, we'll be talking with Senator Scott Flippo from District 17, which is north central Arkansas in the Twin Lakes area. Excited to talk to him once again. We're going to be talking about the government and how the government loves to do things in the name of trying to save us from ourselves when we're not hurting anybody. And then we'll also talk about the times that when we do have a tendency to hurt someone else, the government step. It's going to be a great conversation. I think you're going to like it. Really, really good. But let's start with talk business and politics. I cannot believe this. Did you see this? First of all, did you see the board in the other room, Joe, what we're talking about this segment? Okay. So over at Talk Business and Politics, the XNA, or the Northwest Arkansas Airport, okay, they're going to attempt to track Uber and Lyft drivers with a new technology. It's called a geofence technology. Require them to pay for passenger pickups. On the screen, if you're watching us at paulharrell.com, you'll see a Facebook post by State Representative Jim Dotson. Not coincidentally, and I only say that because of my segment yesterday. Jim Dotson just texted me because I've been trying to get him on the program. He texted me at 4:02, 5 minutes before we came on the air. And so, Representative Dotson, I will get back to you on that if you're listening. All right, so this is an incredible headline. Let's see if we scroll through. I'm scrolling through the story first, so hold off on the comments. Northwest Arkansas Regional Airport, otherwise known, by the abbreviation XNA, plans to implement a geofence that will monitor transit providers at the airport and charge them when they pick up passengers. Surely most of you out there know what Uber is. It's growing everywhere. It's essentially, and then there's Lyft, but Uber, I believe, is the more popular one. I've only used an Uber one time. I was in Washington, D.C., and I had to get to the train station to get to the airport, and it was incredibly convenient and very affordable. But a ride-sharing company, you just have an app. You get to be a driver. You get notified when somebody needs to be picked up. You say, "I'm going to pick you up," and it's amazing. And it's based on voluntary cooperation. I mean, it's great. I reached out to Uber because Uber's trying to be Uber is saying they don't know if they're going to go along with this. I haven't heard back yet, but I did reach out to Uber because I want to see if I could get somebody on the show. But this is what I told them after I asked them to come on the program and told them who I was and everything. This is what I told them. I said, I think these regulations and rules are unfair and show how governments and other organizations view new technology that makes people's lives better as bad because they cannot control it yet. Uber is amazing because it relies on voluntary cooperation that provides services, profit, and privacy. And I told them I can interview live or record to them at any time. So who knows, maybe they'll get in touch with me. I know they're a very large company. They're very busy. But I'd love to have them on to talk about specifically this issue. We have an Arkansas airport that now wants to punish Uber drivers because taxi cab services, they already have to pay the $2 or whatever it is per ride. So if you actually work for a taxi company, you already have to pay the fee to drive up to the airport to pick people up. Airport's making money off of, you guys are in the plane business. You're not in the taxi cab business. You're in the plane business. It's ridiculous. Ride-sharing companies, Uber and Lyft, will be required to operate this system or this way once the system is in place. According to a guy by the name of Kelly Johnson, the airport director, a timeline for when it will go into effect is yet to be determined. On Wednesday, August the 9th, members of the Northwest Arkansas Regional Airport Authority discussed the geofence system and transit providers in an operations committee meeting. As of August 1st, legislation allows the airport to require transit providers to have a lease agreement with the airport in order to operate there. Now, the only reason to do this is to make it difficult on Uber and Lyft, in my opinion. She said Lyft has agreed to operate under the geofence system, but Uber is weighing its options. When drivers of transit providers arrive at the airport with the provider's app open, this is why I was like, how is this going to work? So when drivers pull up to the airport, they say that the geofence system will somehow detect their arrival they'll be able to tell if your app's open or not. So under the airport system, drivers will be charged. They will be charged $2 per trip pickup fee. So every time. So if you're an Uber driver, every time you go pick somebody up, I guess that's $2 off of what you would make.
No Uber driver will ever make that,
right?
Because they don't make that much money off of each trip.
That's what I'm saying. When I drove to the train station in D.C., it was like it was $5. It was like $5.72.
Well, and the Uber driver only keeps part of that. The company gets other part
exactly.
Of it.
So, but imagine if the train station in Washington D.C. was charging cars and stuff for the Uber drivers, like for $2 a trip. That's insane. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure Lyft. I'm sure they're like, well, yeah, we'll do it because I mean, more people know about Uber than they know about Lyft. I mean, I don't have a Lyft app on my phone. I do have the Uber app though.
The Uber app came default on my phone.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Well, see, I mean, anyway, they're just. And I know the CEO of Uber has taken a lot of really bad press, and I just think it's because, man, the liberal media, they're so intimidated by successful companies. And there was I can't remember exactly. There was a hit piece done on the CEO of Uber a while back, and I read it, and I remember thinking to myself, we're not getting the whole story here. This just seems, it really seemed communistic. And I remember that was my impression, that this is definitely done by leftists that don't like capitalism. Anyway. See, the airport will use third-party company to monitor all of this. Uber has yet to agree to operate under the new system, but if they don't and the new system goes into effect, it will mean they will no longer be able to do business at the airport. This is Arkansas, folks. So let's go to Facebook. You see we have the article here, Jim Dotson's post. Scroll down here, Joe. I just want to get a few of these comments here. There won't be any usual suspects. Oh, my gosh. There we go. Okay. State Representative Dan Douglas decides to respond on the comments here. Dan Douglas writes, taxi companies have to pay a fee to operate at airports. Let's be fair. Airports are bleeding in this state. Airplanes... If they can't charge this fee, General Assembly, airplanes will fall out of the sky, and then maybe you'll take funding our airports more seriously. Uber and Lyft should be no different. Let's just be fair. Let's be fair. You know what I think? I think Dan Douglas puts the tax in taxi. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas. Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to Talk Radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
Do you need conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get Nephewed.
Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of uncle, nephew, and nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
It came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you.
Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions.
Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody. Broadcasting across Arkansas and holding politicians accountable for what they say and do.
So
The Paul Harrell Program.
So after Dan Douglas, welcome back. We're on this Facebook post where he's commenting. He's defending the airport that's trying to tax or trying to this state representative, Dan Douglas, that's trying to put a fee on Uber, because Uber's a threat. Technology's a threat. I'm not surprised at all that Dan Douglas is on the side of the airport here, because Dan Douglas is the biggest proponent of the internet sales tax, where technology is seen as a threat to the status quo as well. They want to be able to control it. They want to be able to make money off of it. Wesley on Facebook responds to Dan Douglas saying, Dan, I have a great idea. Why don't we lift the fee on taxi services? That would make it fair for everyone. Then Patrick Deakins writes, why is this becoming a rallying cry of some of our Republican leaders, talking to Dan Douglas himself? More taxes and fees in the name of fairness? What would be really fair is to eliminate all fees and let the transport businesses prosper. To Dan Douglas's response, this is what he says. He says, okay, let's eliminate fees. The airport builds and maintains the roads to the airport. Okay, the parking lots where these ride shares wait and the loading areas where they pick up the fares, the airport pays for all the costs associated with these areas. I don't understand that. I don't understand why you don't see this. These companies profit from the airport's investment. If you don't want them helping to pay for these facilities they profit from, who does pay for them? Think about that, General Assembly. Do these wranglers make me look big? Let me explain something to you. Main Street and the airports are bleeding. We'll be right back with the president of the Family Council, Jerry Cox.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Conservatism is, for me, a set of ideals I think best put forth by, again, to sound like a typical conservative, Ronald Reagan. It's limited government, it's small government, it's making government work for the people without robbing the very people that's trying to help. I think it's low taxes. I think it is freedom. I think probably the best word to sum it up is freedom. One of my friends, I got several friends who are legislators, and was talking to one of them the other day, and I said, man, when you go to the House and the Senate, when you're voting, I said, you really need to think about every bill you're voting. How does this advance freedom and limit government every single time? Because if you're not looking at that, then you can't call yourself a conservative.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just the really core principle of it is how are we limiting government and getting government out of the way of capitalism and free enterprise, really unleashing the best in people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great definition of it for sure. And what that really kind of makes me realize, and said this before, but specifically with Arkansas politics and what's going on in Little Rock and the massive Republican majorities that we have, there's just such an opportunity to reform and to limit government, to show people what more liberty does instead of force. And so I'd love to get your thoughts on maybe the state of Arkansas politics, specifically in the Republican Party, which is the party where conservatism historically has existed. How does the Republican Party, protect its image from, growing, big government politicians, tax and spend politicians in the party? How do they, if they're advocating for higher taxes like we've seen, how does the Republican Party survive out of all of this?
Paul, great question, man. I've been very frustrated with the Republican majorities in Little Rock. They are squandering an incredible opportunity to make a great state even greater. And there have been so many side issues, so many social issues, so many issues that don't advance freedom. They don't help anybody. They're not beneficial. All it is political grandstanding. And it's been very frustrating to see Republicans forget where we came from. I look at somebody like my dad, who at one point was one of only 18 Republicans, yet was able to pass a concealed carry bill that broadened our concealed carry rights in Arkansas, actually passed even other states that were Republican controlled. He did that through sitting down with other people and going, hey, what can I do to make this work? And, the Republicans in Little Rock have forgotten how to do that. There's a difference between negotiating and compromise. Negotiating means everybody sits down at the table, they throw everything out, and they come up with something that's going to work at least somewhat okay for everybody. Compromise means one person gets everything and the other person gets nothing, and they lack the ability to do that. And I think that all culminated with the private option. The private option is a brilliant example of government overreach and of Republicans trying to solve a problem and in reality making it worse.
Yeah.
And so I really hope to see Republicans do something, because I look back at this last session, and it's just there was no good that came out of it. I'm still trying to figure out, okay, what's better, because my income taxes really haven't gone down. Sales taxes on a local level.
Something off your chest? Then call or text Paul now, 870-275-9799.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. I want to welcome now back to the program, second week in a row, we have the president of the Family Council Action, Mr. Jerry Cox is with us. Jerry, welcome back, sir.
Well, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. It's always great to have you on. And listen, I know your scorecard. I mean, I've gone over it since we last talked that you came out with. Really, really good. And I also know that there's probably some folks that may not be too happy about where they are on the scorecard. And so I just wanted to have you on and just kind of see if there has been any fallout or criticism directed at your organization.
Yes, quite a bit. I actually did not anticipate people being as angry with us as they have been just because we published how they voted. And we gave them a grade based on whether they voted with us or not. And, boy, I tell you what, it lit them up. And it's just like, back when I was a high school history teacher, the people that made good grades, man, they loved it. It was a great report card. They were happy. And the ones that didn't get as good a grade as they thought they should have gotten, then they start finger pointing. It's like, this is a dumb evaluation, or you got it in for me. You're just trying to mess me up, or whatever. And the truth is, we have no vested interest in giving anybody a bad grade. In fact, just like being a teacher in a classroom, you'd celebrate if everybody made a good grade. If everybody made an A, you'd be happy. And the truth is, a lot of people made really good scores, and some didn't get as good scores as they thought. And others looked over at some other guy and said, well, I'm more conservative than he is. How did he get a better grade than I did? Well, the truth is, he must have voted better. And that's the stark reality.
Mm. Yeah, and, your organization, the Family Council Action, you guys have been doing this. I said this, I guess, on Friday. For 30 years, you have been, you've kind of known what your convictions are, Jerry, personally, for a long time, and I'm sure that shapes the agenda of the Family Council. Is that right?
Well, of course, we've always been pro-life. We have always been in favor of education reform. We've always been in favor of traditional marriage and, these other family core issues. And, of course, there are issues that connect with that, like the whole marijuana issue and how it impacts children and families. The expansion of alcohol, even, it affects children and families. And certainly how we treat people who are residents of our nursing homes. And some of the lawsuit reform, so-called reform measures that are out there. So these family issues go in a number of directions. We go where the battle is. And people say, well, why are you over there? Because that's where the battle is. That's where the threat is. And so we're there. And so we go to the legislature knowing exactly where we stand on these issues. And, we've evaluated lawmakers as far as publishing their votes for 2 or 3 sessions now, but this is the first time we ever put a grade on there. And there were 25 bills in the House, 25 in the Senate. You get 4 points for each good vote. 4 times 25 is 100. 90 to 100 is an A. Anything below 60 is an F. And we had people make all kinds of grades, and we put them up there the way they earned them. And I tell people over and over, I said, this is not my grade. This is their grade. I didn't vote. This is how they voted. And this is how they voted on the things that are important to us. May not be important to them, might not be important to some other group, but this is how they voted on things that were important to us.
Yeah.
People can look at that and make whatever decision they want to make about it.
Oh yeah, and it's pretty. That's really a great point. And yet they're getting bent out of shape. I think they're getting bent out of shape. Feel free to respond or to this any way you want. So you mentioned some issues there: expansion of alcohol, marijuana. These are things that are important to you. But also, the Family Council has been known, like you said, you've always been pro-life, and that's been something that I think a lot of people agree on, or at least they say they agree on. It seems to me there are some people, though, that just wish you would kind of abandon some of those issues that are important to you so that their scores would have gone up,
Well, yes. But didn't we all in school at times say, man, I wish I hadn't had to take that test. I wish we hadn't had to do that chapter. That was hard. Being a lawmaker is not easy, and you have to make hard decisions. You have to make hard votes. That's why you got elected. And so, yes, I feel their pain, as some people might say, but at the same time, we all have to step up and do our jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my job is to help local people out here understand how their lawmakers are doing. When I travel the state, one of the first questions that people ask me when I walk into a church meeting or whatever it is, they ask, well, how's my guy doing? How's our people doing that we elected? And they really want to know. And, up until now, I've had to say, well, pretty good. I think they're doing all right. But now I have a report card, and I can say, well, here's how they voted on the issues that were important to us.
Yeah.
You tell me how you think they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's as objective as it can possibly be because it's just how they voted. It's not how pretty they are or how good a friend they are or how much they may have helped us. And some of this I'm kind of looking at, well, could we do it better next time? For example, State Representative Mark Lowry, good friend of mine, sponsored 5 good homeschool bills and got them all passed. Well, he got credit for how he voted on those, just like everybody else did, but he didn't get any extra credit because he sponsored the bills.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I had a state representative that sponsored a bill for us. He probably should have had points taken off, Paul, because he did such a poor job. Never ran the bill, never even tried. And so a lot of that becomes subjective there.
Is this one of those guys that had to check with the governor first and then kind of abandoned the effort?
I'm afraid he checked with the governor was his problem.
Yeah. Oh man, it's just you just keep, and that's one of the reasons I love how honest you are about how that is what has been going on. You mentioned earlier, some of the criticism that you've received maybe because one politician knows that he's way more conservative than maybe another politician who had got a higher score than he is. And I just want to reiterate, there are some folks down there who are big talkers. And, I don't mind you being a big talker. I talk for a living. But, it's not just about, wearing your social values on your sleeve and being outspoken. Again, this is actually how you voted. And so that's, I think, in some degree, this scorecard is maybe a mirror, and these legislators don't like the reflection that they're seeing. Well,
it's a little bit like a football game. Some people talk big and they play big. They can make the plays. Other people talk big and then they get on the field is like, well, you're kind of average,
Mm-hmm.
And just because you talk big doesn't mean that you're always going to be able to measure up to, an A standard or top of the line or whatever. And so a lot of people will very quickly tell you, I'm the most conservative guy in the legislature. I'm the most conservative gal in the House of Representatives, whatever. And maybe they are. But let's look at how you voted and let's just see, if you really are or not.
Yeah.
And I'm quick to point out this is not the only way to evaluate a lawmaker. Any evaluation is going to be flawed. It's going to fall short. There are probably 4 or 5 scorecards out there right now. They all, including ours, fall in some measure short of telling everybody what all they need to know about a particular lawmaker.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an important tool for people to have.
Yeah.
That they can look at that and put that with everything else that they know and try to come up with a reasonable evaluation. How is my guy doing?
Yes.
So, to answer that question, how's my guy doing?
And I think, the interesting part is, you have scorecards like yours, social issues. You have scorecards maybe like kind of for commerce, economic issues. And, you have people that are going to criticize that regardless. But the common theme going back to this idea that we have to check with the governor, I feel like there's a lot of crossover there. And I said on Friday that with that mentality of the legislature to not be as independent and to constantly check with the governor, some of their scores that they're upset with now that are affecting them personally, it might be because they're not being independent. They're not thinking for themselves and instead listening to the executive branch. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, and it's not just the governor. They have to check with House leadership, Senate leadership, maybe some lobbying group sometimes. But please understand, this is not true with all the people in the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of wonderful, independent-minded folks out there that are going to vote their convictions. And I thank God for them every single time that they do that. But it is disappointing when you see people that you know have good convictions, or at least you think they do, but they lose sight of that when they get out there and somebody in leadership tells them to do otherwise. And that's what's disappointing. And so, to me, Paul, the greatest threat to what we're trying to get done, which is to create a society in which life is honored and religious freedom flourishes and so forth and so on, and morality is honored. The greatest threat to that is not the ACLU or Planned Parenthood or the courts even, or the liberal media. It's people who campaign one way and tell you how conservative they are, and then when they get elected, they put on a jersey maybe for the other team, or they just don't do much. They just kind of sit there and forget about all those campaign promises. This is one tool that people can use to see, did my lawmaker keep his promises?
Mm-hmm.
And if it helps people do that, then that serves everybody's best interest, I think.
We're talking with Jerry Cox. He's the president of the Family Council Action, and he came on last week to talk about the scorecard, and now there's been some fallout. We're talking about maybe the people that are criticizing. I really appreciate the conversation. The only person that I know of, Jerry, who has publicly criticized not just the Family Council but the other scorecards that are out there, Senator Jim Hendren, who said on Twitter that he would like for groups like the Family Council to disclose their donors, and I'm not sure if he's doing that so he could maybe try to discredit your scorecard or discredit your organization. But what are your thoughts about the majority leader of the Senate, Jim Hendren, effectively saying, hey, private citizens should be revealed in who they're supporting politically?
Well, that's bad. I mean, for anybody to say that would be a good idea, I think they need to stop and think. They are the government. They're an elected official. They're funded with tax dollars. They're spending our tax dollars. So they're the ones that are supposed to be transparent for all of us to look in and root around in their business, because it's our business. We're private. These other groups are private. And if the government thinks that it has a right to come over here to my organization and somehow force me to publish my donor list, then what's next? Are they going to go down to First Baptist Church that might distribute this report card and make them publish all the people that donate to First Baptist Church? And what business would that be of theirs in the first place? And would that change the way their vote is reported? If okay, so let's say I did publish my donor list. It doesn't change the report card one bit, not a bit, because their votes are the same whether I publish my list of donors or not. So I'm not sure what problem that would even begin to solve, and what's more, it's going to create a myriad of other issues about privacy.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's what Jim Hendren, what I'm about to say is what Jim Hendren meant, but to me, the only reason to have a donor list, or one of the big ones to have, is so that you could go after those donors in whatever form you can. I mean,
yeah, and that's the thing we've all been concerned about with some of the so-called reforms that are out there, where they're trying to make anybody who's involved in the political process out here publish their donor list. Mm-hmm. And that has a chilling effect on participation and just all kinds of things. And so, we do still have a right to privacy in that regard, and I want to preserve it. And, again, I could publish my donor list all day long, and it would not change the content of that report, because the votes are what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, and on that, just real quick, nationally, there's way more examples of this, of what and I know Jim Hendren is a Republican, but on the left, I mean, you look at like somebody like the Mozilla CEO, who had to resign because they found out, he was donating to groups that the left thought he shouldn't be donating to, and then he loses his job. I mean, you can go on and on about when people find out what is private information, how your career is over. You're done for, and it may not be that extreme in Arkansas, but it could be, and that's why. I mean, it's a First Amendment issue. It's a freedom of association issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when they were trying to get the concealed carry list when it was published, and some stuff like that. It just it's an invasion of people's privacy. So here's the bottom line for us with this report card. I'm glad we did it. I hope people find it to be a useful tool that they can put in their toolbox with the other things they use to evaluate their lawmakers. And, if people say, why did you put those issues on there? They were all the issues that we worked on during the legislative session. So we thought that was important. And were there other issues that were important? You bet. Were there other issues I cared about personally? Of course. But we didn't put those in there because guess what? We didn't work on them. And so that's how we came to where we were on this.
Yeah.
And so we're going to give Statesman Awards to 16 members of the General Assembly, 8 senators, 8 House members. And we've ordered the awards. I have about 6,000 of these report cards that I'm, to use a good Arkansas term, that I'm fixing to mail out to the people on our list. But it is available online at arkansasreport.com, and people can read it and draw whatever conclusions they choose.
All right. arkansasreport.com. Jerry Cox, the president of the Family Council Action Committee. We appreciate it, sir. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Okay. All right. Folks, again, if you want to get that report card, Family Council report card, the website, arkansasreport.com. Back in just a moment. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Who's next to Zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The Zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the Zipline. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt And I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Oh, you know what? Okay, fine. Whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP Parody.
Senator John Bozeman is in the news. They got a headline here from Frank Lockwood. Follow-up surgery is set for Senator John Bozeman after his 2014 aorta tear, which you remember when that all happened. That was a lot of people were, really concerned about the senator, and he made a really good recovery. Senator Bozeman on Twitter posting a handwritten note to my fellow Arkansans about my upcoming medical procedure. Let me see if I can enlarge this a little bit. Yeah, there we go. As many of you remember, he writes, I had surgery in 2014 to repair a tear in my aorta. After this type of surgery, about 30% of the time, additional surgery is required. My doctor has been monitoring me since the surgery, and after consulting with him, have decided to go ahead and get this done during the August recess. That way, I will be ready to go when the Senate reconvenes in early September. We have a lot to get done, working together to solve the challenges we face as a nation. As always, Kathy and I appreciate all of your prayers, kind words, and well wishes. John Bozeman. So, yeah, absolutely. So be praying for Senator John Bozeman, that the surgery would go well, and that things, there'd just be no complications, and it would go as smoothly as it can. So, anyway, I'll say this about the problems that we have to face. Boy, do we have a lot of them. I remember when I sat down with my accountant, I guess towards the end of last year, there was a situation where I needed to. Anyway, I was with my accountant, and we were sitting there, and we were talking about some stuff, and we both were like, "Wow, Donald Trump is president of the United States. Isn't this tax cut going to be great?" It's August. It's August. Where's my tax cut? Where's my tax cut? That's what I want to know. I know there's a lot of other small business owners across this country that want to know that as well. With the ineptitude in Washington, though, don't dare think that they're going to get it done before the end of the year. I hope there's nobody out there that's been like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and plan for this tax cut. And hope that it is retroactive and it'll include this year. That's going to be a sad April if that's the case. So please don't do that. I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? There's been some talk of saying they want to raise taxes on the highest bracket, which is a crazy idea, which is ridiculous. But it might be the populist thing to do. But that idea only rests on the fact that a lot of people just don't understand economics. We have got to take a break. We're going to be back for the second hour of the program. And we'll be talking with Senator Scott Flippo on government and how they try to save us from ourselves. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a good interview. Back in a minute.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Still high. Yeah, our unemployment's great. I do appreciate that, but at the same time, it still could be better. Our job environment could be better. What are you doing to keep young conservatives or just young people in period in the state? What are you doing to make our laws where they get out of the way of businesses trying to grow here in the state? So I think they're squandering, again, an opportunity to really go forward. And I don't want to badmouth anybody. I think there's some really great legislators in the House that are trying, and they're working hard. Yeah, I think there are some others that have.
The problem,
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a big problem. And some of the best ones had to fight off tax increases. You know, some of the best ones were handicapped by what I would say was, a misguided leadership that ended up giving you 11 Democrats on a Revenue and Tax Committee. Which then meant that there was going to be no people voting on the record from a conservative tax policy standpoint. Conservatives it was a faulty errand to go before that committee and try to get an actual tax cut passed, a real one, because the Democrats would have voted for it, or would have voted against it. So what you had was essentially the only tax policies that were going to ever even get voted on were the ones that the Republican leadership was going to have to make a deal with the Democrats to get it out of committee. And, we had just a lot of defense, the good defense, when they were trying to raise their taxes. They succeeded some, but you're right, we do have good people down there, Trey, and I hope they continue to get recognized, but I don't understand why we continue to grow spending the way we're doing here, and we have this mentality where, okay, we want to cut taxes, but it's going to be a revenue neutral tax cut. We want to protect what the government's getting at all costs, and yeah, you said opportunity. That just certainly is what they're squandering there. And you feel free to comment more on that, but also comment on the Trump phenomenon and what that was like as a young conservative in the most historic election of my lifetime. It probably will be, the most historic election of your lifetime because we're not that far apart in age.
Yeah. I'll go back real quick to just kind of what we were talking about with Little Rock. There's been so many missed opportunities, and I think what legislators forget is it is okay to go to the House and the Senate and not pass bills. If there's not a bill that's needed, if there's not a problem, if nothing needs to be fixed, then we don't have to fix it. And I know, in your own personal life, my own personal life, when we don't have money, what do? You cut your budget.
Yes.
And that means sometimes you have to sacrifice on things, and that's the problem is, man, government they're unable to push those pain points and to really kind of hurt a little bit, to make those cuts that hurt. So I hope to see us do that in Little Rock. But as far as Trump, Trump is a hard one for me. I lean probably more libertarian than most Republicans do, most conservatives do, again, because I'm very freedom, liberty minded. Trump was a hard one for me because I initially was a very big Rand Paul, Scott Walker, Ted Cruz guy.
Yeah,
Rand was my excellent choices.
Rand was my first choice, and then I was with Ted Cruz, until the end.
Yeah, same here. Also, I thought Rubio was a good option as well, but Trump did something that was unprecedented, and I think what he did was he resonated with people that felt like they didn't have a voice. I'll use the example. I was talking with a gentleman. I was doing some work for him this last week, and he's in his 70s, and he was telling me about his dad. He used to be a union boss up north, and he said, my dad was a lifelong, staunch, yellow dog Democrat, never was going to vote for Republican. But he said, then Ronald Reagan came along, and he was listening to him and hearing him espouse these conservative ideas and really getting out there and connecting with the common man, the unheard voice. And he said his dad in 1980 became a Republican and voted Republican all the way until he died. And we have so many great conservative voices, but they're getting lost in the void. And I don't think Trump is that. What happened was unprecedented. I think he connected with a lot of people that were unconnected with, but Trump doesn't know how to temper himself. And because he doesn't know how to temper what he says and his attitude, he's blowing a lot of opportunities. Republicans have a literal majority on everything. We control the House. We control the Senate. We, in many ways, control the Supreme Court. We control all these local houses. We have the presidency. And what are we getting done? We're focused on the Russia probe and transgender rights and, lack of tax cuts. And somebody said a, inappropriate word on television. We're not focused on the real issues that matter that affect everyday Americans, and that is tax cuts and health care.
Yeah.
And when
of course you got McCain, what about McCain? I mean, I kind of feel like on the health care thing, that was just the empire, if you will, just did not want to actually get rid of this government dependency that they've become accustomed to.
No, and that's the thing. Getting rid of it is going to hurt. That's all there is to it. It's going to hurt. There are people that are.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. It is hour number 2, and my name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. Welcome back to the program. We have Senator Scott Flippo from District 17. Senator Flippo, welcome back, sir.
Paul, thank you very much. Pleasure to be with you today.
Yes, sir. I love these segments. We haven't done them in a little while, but, we always...
Well, you've been kind of busy.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You got a newborn, here now, and so, a first-time dad. So I understand where your plate's been a little bit full lately.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But we always get to talk about bigger picture stuff and bigger picture conservative stuff. And so I thought today maybe we could just talk about when the government likes to pass laws in the name of protecting us from ourselves. Are you familiar with laws like these?
Oh, gosh, Paul, are you trying to get me on my soapbox?
Yes.
Yeah, I am vaguely familiar with some laws to that nature. And, one of the first ones that comes to mind is Arkansas's seatbelt law. I think about six, maybe 8 years ago, the legislature had passed a law, making, not wearing your seatbelt a primary infraction, meaning the police could pull you over for nothing else than just not wearing your seatbelt and give you a ticket. And they did that because there was millions of dollars available in federal funding for law enforcement, but it was predicated off of, states having a primary seatbelt law in the books. So I don't think that General Assembly, that legislature, passed that law without all those millions of dollars of federal money, being available.
Wow.
And, so myself and Senator Terry Rice had, worked on a bill this year that would have lowered the fine. It would have brought the fine back down to $25, which is what that legislation capped the fine at. Well, since then, counties and municipals and the Municipal League and others have, got something through the legislature that allowed them to assess additional costs at the local level, and that they could keep that money. I first of all, I have a fundamental problem with government, really getting in the business of trying to protect me from myself. So it's a good idea to wear your seatbelt because it might save your life. And that's just a common sense good idea. But now government is also making money off of, ticketing me for not wearing my seatbelt. And the concern that I have there is that above, convenience, money, or security and safety, above all that, I value my freedoms and my liberties. And I think this is a pathway in which government starts to, really intrude upon an individual's freedoms and liberties. And that's very concerning to me. And I think, for a lot of Arkansans, unfortunately, we're not able to get that bill out of the House Judiciary Committee this year. We got it passed in the Senate and couldn't get out of the Judiciary Committee in the House.
You think that's probably because of money? I mean, that's what we're talking about here. We're stripping the liberty of people for money.
That is what it is, Paul, and that is exactly the reason that we couldn't get it out of committee, was because counties and municipalities were going to lose money and revenues if we, lowered that fine back down to the, $25, which is what that initial legislation, called for. But now one General Assembly is not beholden to the promises or the commitments of the previous one, so they can go through and change laws and do things. And, as you and I well know, government is constantly moving the line of the sand.
Yeah.
Get what you can today and then come back tomorrow and get, and take the rest of it.
Yeah, I definitely want to. I want to talk about the idea of getting what you can, and coming back. Coming back and getting the rest of it. I think one of those examples would be if we look at the texting while driving laws. Of course, that law went into effect a couple weeks ago, where now for a primary offense, I think the fine is first offense $250. But interestingly enough, Senator Flippo, in that bill, if you're using your GPS app on your phone, then that is exempt. And I think that's an example. Maybe you would agree. Well, why is GPS exempt? Well, that would make everybody furious if you could no longer use your GPS while you're driving. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure. Absolutely, I would agree. I think that would have probably created a fair degree of backlash, and that let's not let that get in the way of quote unquote progress. So obviously, distracted driving is an issue, and it doesn't just put your life at risk. It puts any other motorist on the road, their life is at risk as well. But how do you derive at what that sweet spot is with regards to the amount of a fine? To be what's that sweet spot that's going to prevent people from doing something? What is that fine, that dollar amount, and how do you derive at that dollar amount? And one of the things when that bill was going through the legislature this year that I looked into was I wanted to know how many tickets had been written, the past year, were ticketing people for distracted driving, and I want to say, and don't hold my feet to the fire, that it was around 300 and change. And I think out of those 300 and some odd individuals or tickets that were written, just over 100 actually got tickets, and I think the rest were citations or warnings. And so, maybe more widespread enforcement of the previous law and not raising the fines might have served the means there.
Possibly.
I don't think that you could really tell because there wasn't enough. I don't think that there was enough enforcement on the previous law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe
instead of creating new laws, you enforce the ones that are already on the books.
That's a good point, but
that's the point I would make.
Maybe the local people will, now that it's $250. Maybe now the local officers will actually step in. Who knows? But I love that question. What you're trying to say is, how do you decide on what that dollar amount is for whatever the offense is? That's a really good question. I mean, and if it wasn't about collecting revenue from us by stripping us of our liberties with seatbelt, but I know with cell phones they're trying. You could hurt somebody else. But I want to talk about that in a minute because the law can actually make it worse. But why not set the fine at like $10,000? I don't think anybody would text if they were. I don't think anybody would risk it, or less people would risk texting while driving if you got fined $10,000. Or
an automatic, 1-year suspension of your driver's license.
Yeah. You're exactly right.
Yet
they don't do that, right?
So, a $10,000 fine, or if you really want to curb it, and you're looking to kind of fast track it and get there as and have a significant reduction as possible, as quickly as possible, drop the hammer. Now, why doesn't that happen? Because the backlash would be so significant politically that I don't think that the majority of Arkansans, would be okay with that.
Yeah, I don't think they would either.
They would express those frustrations when they go to vote. And so government, they're wise to that. So what they do is, they chip away at it. We haven't gotten where we are today as a state or as a country overnight. So for conservatives, which I think probably a good deal of your listening audience would identify as, we look at all these vast overreaches of government, the trillions of dollars of debt, and all these other things that government is involved in that they shouldn't really be involved in. That didn't happen overnight. It got there, they just chipped away piece by piece by piece, take what you can get while you can get it, and then wait a few years and come back and get a little bit more and a little bit more. And over the course of years and decades, that really starts to add up. And look at where we are today.
Yeah. And, a lot of times we're talking with Senator Scott Flippo. To me, a lot of the time, the government, they pass these laws, and they do this gradually, and they do it like you said, under the guise of trying to save us from ourselves. But they would even disagree with that characterization, some of them, and they would just put on their compassion hat. No, we care, and we're trying to do the right thing, and we're trying to do the safe thing. But when it comes down to the point we just brought up about the revenue, they want to ignore the fact that this actually is self-serving, that this actually is self-promoting. Self, in this case, being the government's interest. They have an interest in making extra money off of us.
And so, government, in that capacity, is really no different than any of the numerous vendors that are trying to do business and get contracts with the state. So let's take, for example, we can look at our Medicaid program. And, majority of those dollars flow through the private sector, be it, hospitals, nursing homes, assisted living, therapy providers, in-home care services. A vast majority of that funding, kind of goes to the private sector. Well, obviously, the business owners are looking at their bottom line. That's why they're in business. And that's not, I don't fault them for that. So, when they're kind of, looking at policy they're trying to protect their interests. And they're not trying to reduce their revenues. They're trying to increase their revenues. That's their job. And so, you always kind of got to, really do your due diligence to make sure you're getting as much of the story as possible and not just getting, cherry picked. And the government's the same way as, they'll kind of cherry pick the information. It's the messaging part of the political process as far as, what you want the masses to believe is one thing. Mm-hmm. What's really steering it is oftentimes quite another thing. And so it's the sales point, and I guess that's kind of the politics of it.
Yeah.
And, as a conservative and a Republican, I feel like the first thing that we really got to get to is honesty and transparency in government. And a lot of people that I talk to here in my district, 17 in North Central Arkansas, they're pretty suspicious when government starts telling them things and concerning that, are they getting the whole picture from government or from the media? There's this kind of underlying current that they don't feel like they're getting the whole story. And I think that's kind of based in a pretty good, a good bit of it is based in reality.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes they're not.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with that. And, kind of backing up to the fine aspect of it. And, you said just now, well, they're not going to set the fine for texting while driving at $10,000 because there'd be too much of a backlash. It's the same kind of thing. Let's just take cigarettes, for example. Cigarettes are bad for you. Well, if they're bad for you, why doesn't the government, to protect us from ourselves, just make them illegal? But they don't, right? There'd be a huge backlash if they did something like that.
There'd be a huge backlash. And so, one of the things that they did that, I guess like the Clean Indoor Air Act, which I'm not, and this is done in, 4 or 6 years ago, before I got to the legislature, was to, outlaw smoking in, a multitude of indoor places, specifically restaurants, as I'm going to speak to it. Now, if you're a private business owner and you want to have I enjoy going to a restaurant and not having smoke around me. But I don't begrudge a restaurant if they want it to be a smoking facility. I could still make the decision whether I wanted to, eat there or not.
Yep.
Or if you were working in a restaurant, you could decide whether you want to work there or not. It should still be, that individual business owner's, right to make that decision for themselves without government making it for them. Now, they didn't, just make smoking across the border legal or tobacco, but they're kind of constricting it in all these different places. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like this kind of long way approach of, trying to bring those smoking rates down. Now, here in Arkansas, the number one healthcare cost driver is not tobacco. It's obesity and obesity-related health issues. And that is what's really driving Arkansas's healthcare cost right now. So today it is, today it's seatbelts and tobacco. Tomorrow it's going to be mandatory life jackets and a war against donuts. I mean, let's ban trans fat. Let's ban fast food. Let's ban sugar and sweet. These are things that contribute to obesity. For my understanding, tobacco really doesn't have, an impact on obesity. It's not going to, has no bearing on, on your weight. So, but French fries and donuts and those things do.
Yeah.
And so, what kind of political, what kind of campaign are you going to run saying that if you elect me, we're going to outlaw Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I mean, good luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing. We're not there right now. But is it out of the picture to think that you couldn't be there in 15, 20, 30 years?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
And I want to commend you. So just on this, your point of view here is spot on. We're talking with Senator Scott Flippo, but if you just go to this revenue aspect, back to the seatbelt law. Back to the texting while driving law. Number one, you did vote against the increase in that fine, correct?
Correct. Yes,
okay.
I did.
So that's number one. You're really good. That's a really good vote there. But number two, I'm under the belief that this texting law actually makes driving more dangerous because people are going to text anyway, and the government now is going to fine you for it. And so you take that phone and you try to hide it. You put it below the steering wheel. Now your eyes are even more off of the road than they were because people are, and I just feel like, is there nobody in government that wants to acknowledge this, that their law has actually made people, because before texting was outlawed in Arkansas, I would text and drive, but you would do it right up next to the steering wheel with, where your eyes are still on the road. And now that's not happening because the government got involved. Your thoughts on that, Senator Flippo?
Well, and I see your point on there, and I can't really argue it. It's a very good possibility that there's a lot of truth into that, Paul. My opposition to it was really steeped in the fact that we already had a law, a distracted driving law, and there was already a fine in place for texting and driving. And I didn't feel that there was enough. Why weren't we doing a better job of enforcing that law before we went off and increased the fine and did all these other things? Now, this new bill, it had kind of expanded, distracted driving to take it beyond just texting to social media and some other things. But now, if you're in law enforcement and, you pass a motorist on the road, and you can still use your GPS, and you can still, dial phone numbers. You can make a call when you're driving. Well, how do you know if somebody's dialing a phone number or if they're sending a text and you're passing them at 40, 50 miles an hour?
You know what? That's probably the reason why under the old law there was more warnings and less enforcement, because it's so subjective. How in the world are you going to know?
And, now let's not put this beyond the realm of government and even, of Republicans in government to say that, well, now we should be able to access your phone and see and verify that you indeed were making a call and not doing a text message or not on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to, we want to have access to your phone to verify that.
Yeah.
And can you see that happening, Paul?
Absolutely. Right now we've got the Northwest Arkansas Airport. They're going to put a geofence up so that they can keep Uber drivers out unless they pay them $2 a ride. That's what their new plan is. That was in the news today. And, let's take it a step further. As nanotechnology increases, why not inject yourself with nanobots so the government can monitor your blood alcohol level behind the wheel? I mean, you show people, hey, we can have zero incidents if we'll just strip away all your liberty. And I think that's what this segment is about.
And Paul, I think that, look at the, for folks that have had a DUI and you get those blow and go, those devices in your car now where you have to blow and it can measure and detect, your blood alcohol content. And, I think if you have any alcohol in your system, your car won't start. And for folks that I know that have had that, these days it's been a great deterrent. Probably even more so than the court costs or the drunk driving courses that they went to. And I think, well, heck, from a government, why don't you just install those and make them mandatory in every vehicle? So even if you've never, if you've never drink and drive or you've never had a DUI, you're still going to have this device on there because we're going to be proactive on that.
There'd be less revenue, though. They wouldn't have those court costs.
Yeah, less revenue, but a lot more control. And that's my concern in the government is not just them taking my money, but is them taking control of my life and my freedom.
Yeah, Senator Scott Flippo, it's always a pleasure.
Even more concerning.
Yes, sir. It's always a pleasure.
Paul. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again soon. Thank you so
very much.
I appreciate you.
Look forward to it.
Yes, sir. Folks, we got to take a break. Senator Scott Flippo, everyone, from District 17. Back in just a moment. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
Welcome to the Arkansas Obamacare Hotline. We would be more than happy to help you enroll in Arkansas Obamacare today. We just need a little information about you. Let's get started. If you're disabled, pregnant, or looking for medical care for your child, the program is currently full, and there's no doctors to see you. Please hang up now. If you're an able-bodied adult, please press 1. If you're currently employed, we're sorry, but you most likely do not qualify for the program. Please quit your job and call back later. If you don't work and instead play video games all day with your cats in your grandmother's basement, please press 1. If you've never lived in Arkansas, press 1. If you currently live in another state, press 1. If you recently purchased a home in New Jersey for $750,000, please press 1. If your current identity has previously been used by another person, was created before your actual date of birth, or doesn't really exist, please press 1. Congratulations! It sounds like you're the perfect candidate to receive Arkansas Obamacare. Please stay on the line, and a hardworking DHS employee will be with you as soon as possible. While you're waiting, feel free to relax as your ambitions to gainful employment fade away. PHP Parody. The Paul Harrell Program.
Yeah, he talked about the seatbelt law. Senator Flippo was talking about that seatbelt law. Interesting thing about that, how we were given all of this federal money to go ahead and increase the fine. Senator Flippo's right about that, but what we didn't mention is that is technique number 1 on our list of ways to grow government. It's called the matching principle, where a larger government gives a smaller government money, but with strings attached, if you will do something else. A lot of times it tries to raise, we'll give you this many millions of dollars if you raise 10% of that to build a new school. And this is kind of the same thing. We'll give you all of this money if you tax your people more, or in this case, fine them more for not wearing their seatbelt. The number one reason government grows, the technique that they use, we call on this program the matching principle. Back in just a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
We're going to lose health care. You know, it's going to be messy, but in the end, it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Because when I voted for these Republicans, when I got behind and worked for people like Tom Cotton and French Hill and all these guys, these excellent legislators we sent up there, the one thing I told all of them personally was get rid of Obamacare. Get rid of health care. Same here in the state. Stop expanding health care. And and as somebody right now that's been interviewing with other jobs, I'm noticing a trend in it that there's not a lot of benefits that companies offer anymore. And they're all telling me it's because our healthcare costs are so high, and our tax burden is so high. So it's that trickle-down economics that Reagan was so good at espousing, that they don't understand that because they won't tackle those two big tough issues, we're having that problem on the bottom end. And so I don't want to sit here and openly bash Trump. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of some of the things he said. I'm not a fan of the way he does politics. I do admit that what happened was incredible. It was unlike anything we've ever seen.
I'm thankful for it.
I do want him.
I'm thankful, compared to the alternative. I mean, good grief.
Oh, listen. There is nothing better than yet another Clinton, and few people know that, like our Kansas. That said, there is going to have to be some leadership up there. I'm excited about General Mattis. I'm excited about Kelly. While I'm not military, many of my friends are military, and I like the military mindset on a lot of things, of discipline, and getting things done, and making tough choices, and leading with the smartest person in the room. And so I hope that by surrounding himself with some of those people, it'll really kind of whip things into shape. And I like seeing him partner with people like Tom Cotton, who are tough, strong, proven leaders.
Me too. That's all the time we have. Trey Rosenbaum, it's been a pleasure to meet you, sir. Young conservative for our Conservative Future segment. Thanks so much for coming on, and I'd love to do it again soon sometime.
Paul, I really enjoyed it, man. Have me on anytime. Love to discuss this stuff.
All righty. Thank you, sir, very much. Folks, we got to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.
Watch Paul live at paulharrell.com. It's free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see here. The matching principle. We just talked about that. There's also the false proof principle. That's what the people. That's when the government decides to try to make false proof They prove what they want to do. They claim that it'll be the people that wants them to do it, so that they'll have to then provide it to the people. You'll hear things like it's what the people want, the people have spoken, that sort of thing. Good example of false proof is when the mainstream media, they do this as well, but the mainstream media loves to do this. Hillary Clinton being a shoo-in would be one example of this, false proof. But, President Donald Trump is president now, so that's a thing. There's another example, the internet sales tax, right? They love the people want this. No, they're trying to prove it's false proof with the municipal league urging city councils across the state. They're trying to get to a majority of cities to ask ASA to call for a special session to revisit the internet sales tax increase. Then there's obviously single-payer health care. It's what the people want, Medicare for all. But then, of course, if you actually look at the country, you get outside of the coasts and you look at flyover country, that's not what the people want. It's obvious that's not what the people want, Medicare for all. They don't want socialized medicine. So it's a principle that is used, and there's many examples of the false proof. Number 3, then they'll disguise what they're trying to do. That's the third principle, disguise. Example of disguise here in Arkansas is issue 3 of 2015, where they wanted more term limits, but they lied on the ballot issue and actually increased their term limits. We talked about that yesterday. Then issue 3 of 2016, which Asa Hutchinson said was about jobs, but in reality it was about growing government through debt. And enabling more bonds and an unlimited amount of debt to be accrued in the taxpayer's name. This is an example of just disguising or lying to you, or deception. Deception's a very valuable tool to these people to grow the size of government. Number 4, pain point politics. Babies will die, bridges will collapse, dying in highway accidents, dirty air, dirty water. Number 5, economic development. Reviewing these, economic development, that's another technique government uses to grow. It's just a way that they take taxpayer money to give to private corporations, growing the government's influence in the private company, making the private company subservient to the government, vice versa. There's in many cases the government. What I believe they do is they start blurring the lines between where the private sector begins and the government begins, and it's kind of scary if you think about it. Economic development, most of the time, that phrase is a scam. Unless you say, I believe in economic development that lowers taxes and regulations for everybody, then it's a scam. The other technique, number 6, we added this one, but I think we've covered it before. Projection and deflection. You've heard people accuse limited government conservatives in Arkansas about being single-issue people when it comes to Medicaid expansion, Obamacare. They criticize me. They'll criticize Conduit for talking about Obamacare, Medicaid expansion all the time, and Asa Hutchinson's Arkansas Works. Single issue, you can't get over this single issue. Well, number 1, it is the largest expansion of government in Arkansas history, but they're actually projecting on us what they have done. They are actually single issue people because they will stop at nothing to continue the program because they have tied, that single issue has actually tied our entire budget up for the foreseeable future by having to find a way to pay for it. I mean, it's the single issue that they have done, that they have perpetuated, this problem that they have created, is an albatross around the state's neck right now. And all of the revenue shortfalls that we're having, and we only know that we're having revenue shortfalls because the governor did have to cut the budget. Now, he put some money back in, but he did have to cut it initially, and they also, Republicans, tried to raise their taxes multiple times. So there's clearly revenue problems. There's spending problems. I'm saying in their mind it's revenue problems. It's actually a spending problem, but you get the point. It's all about this single issue. The single issue being what they did. And they would love for people to shut up about it so that they can go talk about how pro-life they are. But with Jerry Cox's scorecard, some of them can't even do that anymore. The ground is kind of crumbling beneath the feet of the establishment here in Arkansas. They know it, too. Why else do they start demanding to know the donors of these groups? Projection and deflection, another example. Republicans' pro-tax leadership, right? They call people tax cheats for not paying the use tax that is currently uncollectible in the state via internet purchases. And yet Republican Jake Files is in the news constantly. He's got IRS problems, and he's the chair of the Revenue and Taxation Committee in the Senate. And there's not been one Republican that has said Senator Jake Files should resign. Not one. And it took the Democrats. I don't even know if the Democrats have officially asked for his resignation. I know they made a statement about it when the latest news on him broke. But come on, guys. Joe, will you make a note? Let's do a Jake Files segment tomorrow. I'd just like to rehash some of this stuff for our Fort Smith audience where he's from, KFPW, the Marshall. We appreciate you guys listening out there. We appreciate everybody listening. So let's move on now. We got some more stuff to get to here. Interestingly enough, I've got this Facebook post that I find fascinating. There is a post on Facebook to the group Patriots of Act 746. Now, it is a closed group that I am privileged to be a member of. But we have a guy by the name of Ryan on Facebook. And Ryan posts a photo of a magazine called Concealed Carry Handguns. And he writes, this recent statute change talking about 746. This is in a magazine called Concealed Carry Handguns. This is a valuable piece of information. Joe, we've got this post up on the Facebook, so throw this up for us. And listen to this. This is Arkansas, so you can see they're going down the list here. You can see at the bottom of the page, they've got California listed. And this is essentially a part of a magazine where they're giving you an update on each state's gun laws, right? And so they have the arkansasstatepolice.arkansas.gov/services and programs where you can get all of this online, like all of these statutes and everything else. Talks about the issuing authority for your concealed carry license here in Arkansas is the Director of Department of State Police. The cost is $100 plus other costs if under 65 years of age, currently $142.11. $50 plus other costs if over 65, currently $90.61. Renewals, $35 plus other costs with no difference based on age, currently $62.80. The length of the permit is 5 years. Terms of issuance, shall issue, reciprocity, yes. Out-of-state permits, no. But listen at the bottom of this page. This is a big deal. Note, Arkansas recognizes a valid permit issued by any other state. A recent statute change settled a long-standing dispute and now allows concealed carry without a permit. This is in a magazine called Concealed Carry Handguns, according to this Facebook post. We brought to you when this law went into effect, and you see some of these posts here. Somebody making the comparison. So go look at the National Rifle Association website. At least this magazine does a better job of getting the law right. Alan goes on to write, gotta love how they give all the permission slip info and point out that you don't actually need it. David, so is this really saying I don't need a concealed carry permit to conceal carry? Let's look at that. 9 replies. People on the Facebook page, yes, my wife is concerned about that as well, even more since the cost of the class and the permit is near the same cost to buy a brand new pistol. Gary on Facebook writing, per Act 746, the concealed carry handgun license is not required, and per Act 486, reinforces Act 746, and rebuts the bogus Attorney General Rutledge's opinion. Now, some parts of the state where the citizenry haven't held these authorities accountable may see issues. Most parts, no. There's interesting facts here if you keep reading in this post. Been carrying since Act 746, never had a problem. The problem is it's virtually impossible to be cited for doing so to challenge. So Gary Epperson here on Facebook, do you see that? Yeah, right there. The problem is it's virtually impossible to be cited for doing so. We have a really weird situation here. You have Act 746, which decriminalized gun possession back in 2015. We have the most recent act to clarify and basically show the Arkansas State Police that they can't just arbitrarily change their rules because they don't like that the legislature and Governor Beebe back in the day, who accidentally signed this thing without reading it, essentially decriminalized guns in this state to the point where we have constitutional carry, where you don't need a concealed carry permit to open carry or conceal carry. And the law out of the legislature this year, Act 486, confirms Act 746. So they passed another law clarifying, and I was so worried that the clarifying aspect was going to be regressive, but they actually advanced the Second Amendment even more. And so what is Gary saying here? The problem is it's virtually impossible to be cited for doing it. So if you get a police officer that's going to try to put the old law on you, that doesn't know that the statutes have changed, it doesn't know the status quo have changed. If you get a law enforcement officer, which we love law enforcement, but if they don't know and they see you open carrying and they try to give you a hard time or they try to arrest you or they see that you're concealed carrying and for some reason you're in an altercation and you don't have a license and they try to do something there, folks, you may get harassed, you may get arrested, but eventually this is going to come to a prosecutor's desk. And what has happened time and time again in Arkansas, to my knowledge, since Act 746 has been passed, the prosecutors drop the charges. And the prosecutors drop the charges because they read the law and they say there's no way we're going to be able to convict them for this, because in Arkansas, the only way to get convicted of carrying a weapon is if you are going to do something unlawful with the weapon. Well, how do you prove that? Well, that's a hard thing to prove. Now, the only scenario that, or the one that always pops into my head is, texting somebody like, I'm on the way with my gun to murder you. And if the police officer were happen to see that, okay, that's now proof we're going to charge you with the gun crime. But listen to that. You wouldn't charge somebody with a gun possession of a weapon after that. You would charge them with the more severe terroristic threatening. You know what I'm saying? So we've gotten to the point where this carrying a weapon law is useless. I'm sorry, the prosecution for having a firearm or a weapon or a knife, I mean, it's not just guns, it's weapons, knives, bats, stuff like that, is very difficult to prove. It's been decriminalized. It's very simple. There is no law on the books that says that you are allowed to sit on your front porch and drink iced tea. But there is no law prohibiting you from doing that. So you can do it. That is the status of carrying a weapon in the state of Arkansas right now. If you read Act 746 and the newly passed, that Asa Hutchinson didn't sign, by the way, he just let it become law, Act 486. The issue becomes no prosecutor does this. And so what I was trying to say is the prosecutors drop the charges if there are charges. And so it doesn't ever go before a judge. And so you don't ever have precedent. And I believe in the Patriots of Act 746 community, and really just gun people, people who enjoy the Second Amendment because it's our unalienable right. The frustration is that law enforcement maybe more uniformly would pay more attention to what the law actually is and abide by it in terms of their enforcement capabilities if there was a judge that issued a ruling that said you're not guilty because the prosecution failed to prove because of this, that, and the other. I'm a little bit more optimistic. This is a gradual thing. People didn't know it was, the way State Representative Denny Altis did this was, I think, in terms of, I think it was genius. You could argue there was some legislative sleight of hand there because not even Governor Mike Beebe knew what he was signing. They didn't know that they changed this word and that word. Bada bing, bada boom, we have constitutional carry. Arkansas State Police is furious about it because they're going to potentially lose their revenue. That's why Leslie Rutledge's opinion has been criticized by Second Amendment groups because, yes, it did acknowledge Act 746 gives you the right to lawfully open carry, but then at the end, a very arbitrary decision where she says, but you cannot conceal carry without a concealed carry license, thereby bailing out the Arkansas State Police and their revenue giant, the tax to be able to use your Second Amendment right in the state of Arkansas. Now, I'm one of these guys that still believes a concealed carry permit is worth it because I like to travel to other parts of the country, and I like to have a gun when I do that. And so I like to still have my concealed carry permit. I don't know what the Arkansas State Police is so afraid of because if they framed it that way, you think most people, there are tons of people that would still want to have a concealed carry permit so that they may travel and conceal their gun in Mississippi, Alabama, or especially Florida in the Gulf. Because if you go from Arkansas down to the Gulf of Mexico to the beach, you've got states that are reciprocal all the way to the Gulf, and it's quite nice. Anyway, you'd think that, and this is the problem, government is so slow to move. The Arkansas State Police should embrace the status quo, which now is, technically the status quo is the Arkansas State Police doesn't want to acknowledge what this is. Arkansas State Police should change with the times because there is a new status quo coming, and that is open carry and concealed carry you can do in Arkansas permitless. And instead, they should rebrand and say, let me tell you why a concealed carry permit is still a thing. Let me tell you why you should still take those classes. Let me tell you why you should do all of this. Because of the rest, if you want to travel, this is a way to protect you and your family. And that's the way they should approach it if they're trying to save their revenue. That's my opinion. Because we can't control what other states are doing. Now, in a perfect world, the Second Amendment should be honored all across this country, and it's not. But I'd rather have the option to have a weapon to protect myself than not, so I'd like to have a concealed carry permit and be able to travel throughout the country in the states that are reciprocal. We got to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. The Liberty Machine rolls on. Back in a minute.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in this situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist health care program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal attack on his or her character. And if they admit to any wrongdoing at all, they must replace the word lie with words like misspoke, misstatement, misrepresent, or mislead.
Amazing! Excellent work, Susie. I feel like the student has really become the teacher. You will make a terrific addition to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language.
All hands on deck. This is a Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language emergency. Several politicians are scrambling after being exposed by some talk radio host. Let's move it, people. They need our help.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. You vote 'em in, and we keep 'em in. PHP Parody.
So the American singer, songwriter, musician, television host, and actor Glenn Campbell died this week. He died on Tuesday. Best known for a series of hits in the 1960s and 70s for hosting a music and comedy variety show called The Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour on CBS television from January 1969 through June 1972. This man was born, according to Wikipedia, in Billstown, Arkansas. And there is a 75th album of American country singer Johnny Cash called Water from the Wells of Home. It was released by Mercury Records in 1988, and it features several collaborations with other artists, including New Moon Over Jamaica with Paul McCartney, and other guests on that album include people like Waylon Jennings, Hank Williams Jr., and Glenn Campbell. What do you think? Should tomorrow be Glenn Campbell Friday? Maybe we could make some Johnny Cash with Glenn Campbell tomorrow. What do you think, Joe? I think it's certainly appropriate. Yeah, me too. Me too. Glenn Campbell was born in Billstown, tiny community near Delight in Pike County, Arkansas. He was the seventh son of 12 children. The family lived on a farm where they barely got by growing cotton, corn, watermelons, and potatoes. Quote, "We had no electricity," Glenn Campbell said. Money was scarce. $1 in those days looked as big as a saddle blanket. To supplement income, the family picked cotton for more successful farmers. Quote, "I picked cotton for $1.25 100 pounds," said Campbell. If you work your tail off, you could pick 80 or 90 pounds a day. Glenn Campbell died. He was, 82? 81? Let me see here. I'm telling you, man, it's interesting, the tributes that are pouring in. It's 81 years old is how old he was. The tributes that are pouring in are fascinating. You know what? I grew up watching a John Wayne film called True Grit, and I'm pretty sure he was in True Grit, wasn't he? Let me see here. Yeah. I mean, he was. He was, what character? I don't remember exactly what character he played, but I'm pretty sure he was in True Grit. See, I see the soundtrack. Hang on one second. I'm going to IMDb this. Hang on, True Grit, because this is. I got to find this out before the show ends. International Movie Database. That's actually now the Internet Movie Database. Showing my age. So 1969, you have the movie True Grit. Can we get a cast of characters, please? Come on now. While I'm doing this, buy our Liberty Machine t-shirts over at paulharrell.com. That's paulharrell.com, HARRELL.com. Yeah, there we go. Stars John Wayne, Kim Darby, and Glenn Campbell. True Grit. LaBeouf? Am I saying that right? LaBeouf? I don't think so. Yeah, LaBeouf, the character here. Anyway, we got to go, folks. We'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday / Glenn Campbell Friday. One time only.